Harsh, Sanjay, thank you for being here on this occasion. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. I've been at the Leela all day. We had a couple of workshops. We had a couple of things to do during the day. And as the rains kept getting stronger and stronger, I think all of us were like holding our breath. So I know some of our winners aren't here right now. We're still hoping that they will make it. But thank you all for braving that, your flights, your traffic, and thank you so much. It's a pleasure. So I think, we have Harsh and Sanjay here, two leaders that I personally admire. And I think what we know, I was reading this article, and a lot of you must have also read it, on the future of work. And, it's so scary today, so many jobs coming under threat, a whole list being published about jobs that are not going to be there in a couple of years. But I was also reading about jobs that are definitely going to be there, right? And this was interesting. So let me read this out. Yeah. The first one, any guesses? Jobs that are going to continue to stay and not going anywhere? From the audience? Yeah. PJ?
Massage therapists.
We are going to need them. So massage therapists, it's not on the list, but I'm sure they'll be around, right? So we'll add that perhaps on the list. But therapists, right? Any doubt that therapists are going to be around? No, they should be. I'm sure they're going to be around. Nutritionists, I think with all the kind of anxiety and diet disorders, nutritionists are going to be around. I heard a clap at the back. So yeah, I think you're going to be in business for a long time. That's what I'm hoping. Social workers. And I think the last one, and it was perhaps among the top 3, was really people managers, right? No surprises there. And we also know that a couple of years ago, actually Google did a very interesting study. And Google does this all the time. They thought that, why people managers? Do we really need them going forward? And they actually, how many of you have heard of Project Oxygen? Yeah? Okay, I see a couple of hands up in the room. And what Google did in 2002, Sanjay, Harsh, you all know about this, I'm sure. They said that, let's try and understand whether people managers are actually going to stay relevant, right? And they took a couple of years, actually. And they concluded that people managers are going to be around for a long time. In fact, they're critical to success of teams, right? And they came up with a list of about 8 behaviors that are relevant to people, to teams, to success of teams, and to people managers. In 2008, they said maybe it's not relevant now, right? So we'll redo the study. And they redid the study with a few more teams at Google, high-performing teams at Google. And guess what? It's still held true. So people managers still going to be around. In fact, to the 8 list of traits of high-performing, successful people managers, they added 2 more on that list. Read up. I think it's a very, very interesting study. But that brings me to the topic of today's discussion, really how people managers' roles are getting redefined, right? So, Harsh, I'm going to put my first question to you. TechM has done some very interesting innovations, right? I think you're leading from the front. So many things around employee engagement, about really making teams successful, enabling managers to do that. So what's your perspective about this? How is it going to change? How is it going to look different for us?
So thank you for asking that question. So if I have to give you a perspective, let me give you a perspective of the company first. We are diverse, so we have about 130,000 employees around 95 countries. I think the challenge today is that people have moved from what we used to call employee engagement to employee experience. And we strongly believe in our organization that we've moved from employee experience to something called human experience. The difference being that when you go home, you have an Alexa welcoming you, you have a IoT everywhere in your house, and then you come to the office, you have really olden days systems to work with, right? Which are closed systems. So what's going to change is that the future, we believe, is going to be more human than we think. And the second thing we believe in is that technology is going to be a key for efficiency, effectiveness, repeatability, but moments of truth will still be human. And when we launched our humanoid, we said we are launching a humanoid because the future is more human. Because you have to have the HR managers not do the stuff that they really don't want to do. I haven't met a single HR guy or HR lady who says, I want to spend my lifetime telling people what their leave balances are. You don't need to have an HR manager do that. I haven't met a single HR head who said, I am very passionate about telling about entitlements in a certain country. And that's the job that the humanoid does, whereas the humans do what they have to do best, which is high touch.
I love it. I love the whole thing on human experience, and humans are at least here to stay for a long time, so it makes sense to invest in that. Sanjay, to you, you've been part of such a large, successful organization leading the India team of Teleperformance. After having heard you so many times at some at some conferences, I know that you firmly believe that people leaders, people managers play the role of HR managers, right? Harsh, to your point. And the fact that, it can't be delegated to HR. You take accountability for your team. So what are some things that you believe that people leaders are going to have to do in the next 5 years, right? Teams are changing. We know they're getting more nimble. We know that know organizational structures are getting flat. Agile teams. And of course, the very interesting subject of managing millennials. So what do you think are the top 5 things that managers and leaders are going to have to focus on?
Well, as we all know, we are in this digital age, and there's a hyper talk and action around digital. But one thing is for certain, and getting reassured, and Harsh, very, I couldn't endorse that more. People will remain human beings with feelings, human beings with a heart and brain. And at the end of the day, whether yesterday, today, or tomorrow, every business is about people serving people. So there are people at both ends, building the products for consumers who are people. So that fundamental doesn't change. And I'm pretty bullish that the 5.0 that is around the corner, and the chatter has already begun, it is about more values in the system. So it's in a way going back to basics. We've had an overdrive, and that will remain. That's the nature of the business, about numbers, results. So there's been an overdrive in posturing as for results only. So that means there's been a huge demand on people. So when there's a demand on people, what are we giving in return as leaders, as people managers? And what do people need? So we uncovered a 5-piece doctrine in the course of our journey as we were transitioning or transforming ourselves from trying to be yelling and telling leaders to more listening leaders. And the first was, what I already spoke about, was people. And people will, in a way, do greater things, faster things, be more efficient, more caring, only if they are passionate. And passionate about what they do. That's the second P. And where do you get passion from into the workplace? Remember one thing, 80% of our waking hours we spend at the workplace. So we can't have a life if people are not alive and kicking, and we're not going to have a quality of life. Forget, I'm never a believer of work-life balance, because if you don't have excitement at the workplace, you can't have a life in 25% of your hours. The maths just doesn't add up. So the third part was to get people to be passionate about what they're doing. They're human beings, and they need to have a strong sense of purpose in what they're doing. 2 same jobs, 10 same jobs, they can be 10 different purposes for those 10 individuals. everybody firing towards their purpose, is what feeds the passion. So that purpose, finding that purpose will only come if we are able to personalize the professionalism with our people. And there's no greater adrenaline that gets fed into the system which comes with pride. People wanting to come to work, and performance is the last of the P's, which is an outcome. I never looked at performance in the last 3 years. It was basically the first 4, which were around, beginning with people, and that was an auto fail. If somebody was not good with people, he was not going to get there. And we had built a culture of unlimited empowerment in the organization over time. It took time and doing, so I know there's paucity of time, so I'll have to cut that story short. We can take it offline otherwise. There's unlimited resources available with each one of us, up and down the hierarchy. And that's the resource of being nice, being fair. It doesn't cost you money. You don't need an approval. You don't need an authorization. You don't need a budget for that. But if that can be developed as a culture of being fair, and that's where we come to the equation where we said, fortunately, I happen to be the customer experience business, where I had the privilege, and my team had the privilege of all the customer experience handbooks of all the best and not so best businesses. So the basic theme came around, and which had to be practiced, was if we are to succeed in doing anything, then the customer experience is the end result. But to get that done, if the employee experience is not better than what we expect to deliver for our customers, then we don't have it in us. There's a hope in hell that it's going to turn out right. So we became obsessed with employee experience. And this sounds like a lot of English, but we use technology to help us, guide us at the back end. I'll just give you 2 small examples. One of them was about every organization, and ours too was in the same process of the leave application process and approval and blah, blah, blah. And we said the senior management has it, different yardstick for it, and the rest, 99% of the employees have to follow the rule. We just threw the rule book out of the window, and we said anybody and everybody in the organization, 2 hours before their work schedule, can just send in a text message, not coming. No reasons asked, no explanations to be. We are not to be concerned with why they don't want to come. Even if somebody says, I just want to put my legs up or go to see a movie, that's a reason good enough for that person. That was a yardstick of equitable fairness and trust. And believe me, what we got back in return was unimaginable trust. And we quantified at the end of the year, we saved 9,742 hours of toxic discussion. That discussion is always toxic because somebody is playing power, somebody is giving an exaggerated reason for it. The second one, we are, by convention, and I don't say that with any, I say that with a deep sense of honesty, there is an authoritarianism in every organization. Rank play, power play. How do we shift to becoming a coach instead of trying to play the boss? So about 6 years back, while signing the annual increments and the appraisals kind of coincide, that's an exercise everybody does here. Very painful exercise. Very difficult to get done right or please anybody. But the reason for us deliberating on that was, I said, what a wasteful exercise. We are not helping anybody by 12 months later telling somebody he didn't do such a great job 9 months back. Or in the first 4 months was sluggish. Or the last 3 months are sluggish, or last 1 month was sluggish, so somebody's getting. So nobody really had a fair chance. So we're probably amongst the first companies in the country, probably in the world, as a subsidiary here in India, that did away with annual appraisals altogether. We shifted to a monthly scorecard system, which was calibrated, and we had about 98% of our work population covered on it. I think by now it must be 100%. But when I left, it was about 98% covered. And quantified their jobs in that scorecard. And the criteria auto-fail again was people, process part. The result had only 10% weightage. Because we said if you get these parameters right, the result will come.
Absolutely.
If these are not right, that won't come. So these are small things. It was seen as a huge fairness standard that people were being helped rather than a quartile management, which is like putting a gun to the people at the end. So there is going to be a human-to-human interaction, and that's only going to intensify, I think. Because cultures are going to be the winners in those 40% of the companies that are going to win out there, and 60 that are going to die. Sorry, long answer.
That continues to stay, Sanjay. So thank you for sharing that perspective, and I'm sure with so many great people managers in the room, they echo that sentiment, that you put people first, they deliver service, and profits come. Yeah? So you measure and you track and you focus on people, and of course the rest is definitely going to be an outcome. Harsh, coming back to you, I think, what are some of the things that you as a people leader believe that is going to be important to equip managers with, right? I'm sure for a lot of the leaders here today, a lot of people management comes naturally. They know how to do it. But there are a lot of people managers who also struggle with it. It doesn't come easy to all. And is there a magic formula? What do you believe that are going to be some of the key skills that organizations are going to need to give their people managers, people leaders soon?
So as I said, a lot has changed on the various definitions of leadership. And one of the things I think that people are struggling today with, the very definition of great managers is going to be drastically changing. Because what we are struggling with really is digital prowess. Yeah. Because, great managers have to communicate. And unfortunately, the way we communicated some years ago has completely changed. So no more emails. Nobody reads emails. Yeah. Nobody even reads, messaging or SMSs that you send across. Nobody wants to do, unfortunately, surveys once a year. Nobody wants to look at, filling up forms. So I think what the biggest thing that is happening is to equip people with the concept of change management and how fast that is changing, and the concept of having digital prowess in themselves. And for example, in TechM, we don't have any ID cards for people. We have facial recognition. People walk in, look in, walk in. It also is a moodometer, so you don't do any surveys. Every single day on my desk, I have a survey or a moodometer of every single location around the world. We don't have any IJPs. We have Talix, which is a world's first marketplace of talent. It's built on bidding for jobs, as well as it's an AI-driven tool, so it automatically matches. So you don't have to actually fill up any forms. When you join TechM, you don't fill a single form. Wow. Because it's all OCI and optical recognition. It picks up from your LinkedIn, so the entire day that you filled up form is useless completely. We also have very, very interesting stuff with, coming in because our HR folks do things which are completely different from the normal HR folks of various companies. So these are some of the things we are trying to change, and it's impacting people hugely because they don't come in with a normal mentality of going to an office, but they come to have some fun.
Lovely. Thank you for sharing that, Harsh. And it's lovely. I think it's absolutely awesome to see such amazing innovation at TechM. I know we've probably run out of time, but one thing I think, and this is really coming from you and not from your organizational perspective. But if you had to give one piece of advice, right, to the people managers sitting in this room, and I'm sure a lot of interviews have been compiled by Forbes in the magazine on your desk, read them, some lovely practices there. But if you had to give a people manager one advice, just one piece of advice, what would that be?
I would say the best thing is to be yourself. And the problem is that we don't be ourselves in organizations and want to be somebody to emulate. So be yourself and have fun in dealing with people.
All right, Sanjay?
Adding to what Harsh said, there's a line, this is not from me, but I followed this, and a lot of people in my organization who followed it, we found it very helpful to us. If you have the courage to face the truth, the solution's often staring at you. And if you can practice some of that, it makes life very easy. Because you don't have to be the wise one to come with all the solutions. People are coming to you with all their problems, but they're also coming with the solutions. So if we have a little deeper listening into it, just be relaxed and easy. And you will find those solutions coming from them. And you just have to implement, more than 90% of them are implementable because they aren't asking for the moon. They're realistic guys. So that's just keeping an open mind to things. That's it.
Super. So from being yourself to being a great listener, thank you Harsh, thank you Sanjay for that very, very interesting chat and sharing all those insights with us. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed this. No, that's okay, don't worry, it helps sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was such an educational session. A round of applause for these fine gentlemen and lady.